I'm just arriving now after a long trip to Fatehpur Sikri, which is a magnificent palace. But just look at the traffic here to get in, because there's a festival happening today, Eid. It's the Muslim festival, the end of Ramadan. That's why all these people are coming here. Then you might say, wait, aren't you in India? Man, what are Muslims doing here? Remember that for many years, almost 1,000 years, Muslims were here. And later, that's why now there's Pakistan. I've told this story before, but many Muslims still live here in India. About 14% of the population follows the Muslim religion. It's crazy when you look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on the same motorcycle here, 5 on the same bike, and this place is just total madness. Bikes and cars coming and going all the time. We have to watch out for everything. You could easily break a leg here. The whole history of this place is connected to an emperor named Akbar. He was married to 3 women. He was a man fascinated by religions. He was the Mughal emperor. Don't confuse them with the Mongols, okay? The Mughals were a people who were a mix of Turks and Mongols. So, since he was Muslim, he could marry up to 4 times. So, he had 3 wives. One Muslim wife, who was the first. The second, who was Portuguese, her name was actually Maria, okay? And the third was Hindu. But why a Portuguese woman here? Because Vasco da Gama arrived here in India in 1498, okay? And Akbar came later. Well, he was married to the 3 women and only one of them, the first, had 2 daughters. So, Akbar had a serious problem. He had no heirs. This worried him every day. In this region here, he fought a battle called Gadaira. Here he won this battle and kept it in his memory. Over time, he met a guru in this place named Salim, a high priest, a very holy person, a sacred saint, as he called him. He came to ask this holy saint for some advice and a blessing, and said, I need to have a son. The holy saint told him the following, by next year, you will have 3 sons. Okay, he didn't have 3 sons, but he did have one with his first wife. He was very happy and satisfied with the prophecy of this holy saint, who lived here in the region, and decided to bring the entire capital of Agra, which was over in Agra, to this place here. That's why he built this whole city and stayed here for a few years. Right at the entrance of the palace, we find the place where the emperor held his public audiences together with his ministers. We've already seen this in some other palaces. But what happened here? Emperor Akbar judged according to the law of Talion, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand. So, if someone messed up, that was the punishment. But if there was a really bad guy, a real troublemaker, what did he do? We're going to see a spot here now. You see over there, okay? Do you see that piece? That's where the emperor would tie up his elephant, okay? His means of transportation. Only the rich, the emperors, Maharajas, and very wealthy people rode elephants. We've talked about this before too. So, what did he do? If the guy was really bad, he'd bring him here, lay him down on the grass, and let the elephant calmly crush his head. Maybe that way, people would think twice before committing a crime. Now I'm arriving at the place where private audiences were held, okay? Only the ministers came here, the royal family, the other Maharajas, they get scolded here. This place is also known as the Palace of Religions. We have a column here, and this column is made from a single piece of stone. Just one stone. Look at what an amazing piece of art this is. What happens here is that Akbar was a very religious person, and he liked to mix religions. In fact, he had 9 ministers, and each minister had a different religion. And you can see the architect, the artist behind this work, blending the symbols of these religions. If you look here, you can see a Christian church. Going down, you see the lotus flower, Hinduism. And a little further down, you see the arches of the Muslims. Now, the most interesting thing is that down here, there's a jar. Now, what does a jar have to do with religion? Take a look at this jar here. It's because he believed all these religions together, here we see a symbol of the moguls, would end up as one. That if all of them, mixed together, ended up in this jar, they would become a single religion. In fact, he later founded a religion, a single religion. For him, it was important, with only one God. I'm leaving the name of the religion here so you know. But unfortunately, after Akbar died, the religion also came to an end. After everything was going perfectly in Akbar's life, something started to get very complicated. Lack of water. Here we see a large pool, which used to be filled with water for the people who lived here. And over there, we had an artificial lake, where the people who lived in the city would get water for cooking, bathing, and all their daily chores. The water started to run out. It didn't rain anymore, because the water here is collected from the monsoons, okay? So, what happened? Akbar went again to talk to Salim, the holy saint, and he asked him to give a blessing so that it would rain. The saint said, "My dear, you made a very big mistake, because a poor saint and a rich emperor cannot live together in the same place." Then Akbar said, "But what about now? What am I going to do?" He said, "It's better for you to leave this city." And he suggested that Akbar should go away. But Akbar said, "But I need some help. There's no way." He said, "No, there's no way, none at all. You have to leave here." Akbar decided to leave. He ordered his ministers to destroy the entire city. So much so that if you walk around here, all you see are ruins. But here, inside the palace, the main buildings, he left as a gift for Salim, for the holy saint. Why? Because to him, he was a very important person, and he also didn't want to leave here with the holy saint's curse. But the holy saint refused this gift. He said, "I don't want money, I don't want fame, I don't need the palace, there's no one to live there." And from that moment on, this city became known as the ghost city or the abandoned city because of the lack of water. One of the main buildings here is the 5-story palace, or the Palace of Winds. Since it's completely open and the artificial lake was on this side, the breeze that came from there to here was always cooler. So Akbar would sit up there and his concubines would be on each floor, according to their hierarchy. Even the concubines had a hierarchy. This lower building here is very beautiful. Its story is interesting because Akbar was an illiterate man. Even though he was an emperor, very intelligent and clever, he couldn't read. So, he created here a kind of Islamic madrasa, let's put it that way, a school where children learned about religions and also studied. He wanted children not to be like him. He wanted them to study. I'm in a place that was very important to Akbar. Well, the emperor would stay here and he had a game that looked just like Ludo, really, exactly like Ludo. But instead of using wooden or stone pieces, he used women. For women dressed in red, yellow, blue, and green. And then he would play. There's a board here, a big board. He would sit here and the women would be here. He had fun, and in the end, the 4 women from the winning team would spend the night with the handsome emperor. In this large hall, the emperor's treasures were kept. All the gold, silver, precious stones, and so on were placed here or in the niches you can see up above. Only the diamonds were kept in a secret place, folks. So, for example, you would come here, where this stone is, you take it out, it's a heavy little stone, and then you would put the diamonds underneath here. This isn't just here. You'll find this in all these places. But when they left, they took everything that was here, all the treasures. But the government, after they learned about the story and found out what happened, came here and broke down all the walls to see if there were any diamonds. Unfortunately, they didn't find any. Akbar knew. He took everything. But you can see that every place has a restored wall. If you're enjoying the video, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to get notifications for new videos. The Napitalo, or Bonito tank, is a place that was built so that Akbar could stay up there, enjoying some good music. So, this is kind of like a theater stage. There in the middle, one of the ministers, who was a musician, would play the sitar. In the center, the dancers would perform to entertain everyone gathered around here. The people who lived in the palace, the concubines, the ministers, would sit here by the edge of this lake, which had clean water back then. They would toss rose and jasmine petals here. The place was very fragrant, while Akbar enjoyed the show up there. Look, this is really interesting. I'm even going to crouch down to tell you this story. We can look at this panel, which has several birds here. Akbar really liked all kinds of decoration. So you see animals, fruits, trees, flowers, all over the palace. And it's always good to mention, all of this was done by hand. But if you look at these birds here, they're headless. Why are they headless? Because the palace was left abandoned here for many years, until Akbar's great-grandson came here. When he got here, what was he? Muslim. And for Muslims, images are not allowed. He ordered all the heads of every animal here to be cut off, in any drawing you see throughout the palace. I'm just in love with how much history this place tells us. Now, everything you're seeing here is just one palace. There are three here. This was the palace of the emperor's first wife, who was the Turkish wife. His room was here, her room was over there. And now I'm going to see the palace of the second wife, the Portuguese one. Poor Maria, her palace was just this. The building that's here, everything happened here. This was the dormitory, here was the dining hall. Basically, everything was here. Now, the third wife's, who was Hindu, is already a bit bigger. Look, just by the size, you can tell he liked her more than Maria. Now I just suspect, how interesting. Since she was Hindu, she was vegetarian. She couldn't eat meat, so there was a dining hall just for her. She couldn't mix with the other dining hall. In this dining hall, there was a section right here where she could eat her vegetarian food. This here is the private area where Akbar's third wife stayed. So, you can see it's a huge courtyard. And what's interesting is that on this side is the winter palace, and on this side here is the summer palace. So close, we have both residences. Now, why is that? On this side here, let's remember that behind it there was the artificial lake, which always brought a cooler breeze. On this side of the building, there were several windows she could open to catch that breeze. That's why, in the summer, she would come here. But in the winter, since on the other side there's no lake, she would come here, and there are no windows either, so it was much more comfortable and warmer. And in the middle, a temple. A temple, what? A Hindu temple dedicated to Krishna. She would come here every morning, make offerings, and perform devotions to Krishna. What a wonderful day, and the cherry on top was the Fatehpur Sikri. I love this place. It's simply wonderful. There's so much history you learn when you're here in this place. Share the video with your friends. Don't forget to follow me on social media and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. And if you want to see more videos about India, just click on the playlist. And I'll see you in my next episode, because after all, Inside each of us, there will always be someone who is born to travel.